want to welcome everybody to the next in the series from Base Cybersecurity Institute, our series of cybersecurity webinars. I'm very excited about the talks today. They're two divergent areas, but both of them are about teaching, both teaching humans and how to be our new field of cybersecurity experts, and also teaching artificial intelligence and what we need to know in terms of how to reach out to those people and AIs. This series of webinars is put together by our members and our volunteers. We're all giving our time to this, and I really want to thank our speakers for donating their time to come and speak to us today. We have this BCI has been built around the legacy that Becky Bass created, and we want to continue her legacy in terms of doing education, research for new types of cybersecurity initiatives, ways to make cybersecurity better, and really collaborating across industries, across fields, to take ideas from the lab and put them out into the business and make them usable for everyone. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Our first speaker today is Daryl Pfeif, who is running the Cyber Sleuth Labs, and she'll be talking more about that. And I'm very excited about getting a new generation of cybersecurity professionals. And so with that, Daryl, I'll hand it over to you.
Why, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to share what we're working on with you. So just get my slides up, make sure those are working well. It's all right?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, great. So I wanted to talk about diversity. And so that is kind of the overarching theme of my talk. I want to introduce just a bit about myself. I did not start in computer science or cyber. I actually, I've been doing this pretty much since before there were smartphones and Google, but I started, my interest in computers really started with editing and 3D engineering and some other things, which kind of led me into this field. So I've been here for a bit. I founded my first company in digital forensic solutions in 2005. Later founded Digital Security Associates because maybe 10 plus years into forensics, people still didn't understand, people were still asking me if I did security or not. And the answer was yes. I've also been on the board of DFRWS, which is dedicated to research in forensics. It's one of the longest standing events that is dedicated to digital forensics research. We have an open call. We're looking for more submissions. We started just here in the US, and now we're also producing events in Europe, and this year we'll be adding Asia Pacific. But mostly what I want to talk about today is Cyber Sleuth, which is my newest project. So the state
Daryl, your slides aren't updating.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you cut out for a moment, and your slides aren't moving forward.
Okay. So which slides did you see?
We're just on diversity and DFIR.
How bizarre. Okay. Because I am advancing them and I'm seeing them. So
can you just try unsharing and start over?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, there we go. There's a second slide. That's perfect.
Yes, we have the technology. It's probably because I have multiple screens. Okay, so our state of affairs. We really have a diverse set of problems. So one of the things I found that kind of drew me in was just this amazing different set of problems to address. And I really find that this is more than any other industry I'm currently aware of, we have more diverse problems. So this cybercrime has really transitioned from when I first started, you know, it was sort of a fun thing almost to see if you could break, you know, it's sort of a break fix thing. And now it's big business. It's impossible to keep up with the data breaches. I mean, it's, you know, at least one major breach a day. Disinformation, which is involving this whole other side of technology, because that all of that disinformation is being spread through social media and online. So that just brings this whole other aspect of other set of stakeholders in technology. The fact that our devices are being literally weaponized against us. Fraud, which is probably the first issue that we addressed, because it's really very apparent when your money goes missing and people get cross about that. And then other issues like stalking and some of the other things that have happened for so many years but are just gotten easier. Infrastructure, government, industry, the vulnerabilities in software, really. I do like to say that software is often the malware you pay for, and now the hardware vulnerabilities that we're seeing. So really hardware being potentially a backdoor you're paying for. This just is bringing in a whole new set of people that we need to be training, working with, communicating with, because it's marketing, it's software, it's hardware. It's really, there isn't, I don't think there's anyone who isn't impacted by cyber security in one way or another. I sort of feel like a climate change scientist. I know we've been talking about this, and one of the things that I love about your institute is also that you're shocked that you know, we're still talking about some of the most basic things. 75% of the intrusions could be easily avoided by patching your software or updating your passwords. Which brings me to my next aspect of diversity, which is that within our community, we also have this diverse set of issues. So everyone I know in this community is working double, triple time. I like to call it, I personally feel like I'm somewhere around plaid. We're dealing with the fact that many people don't understand the issues, and that's really within companies that you're working for, end users, really it's the entire spectrum of all the people that we're working with and for. We need more training, we need more resources, we certainly need more people in this field, and we really need more creative solutions. And it is, I will say that it has progressed amazingly, particularly in forensics. It's progressed tremendously. I can see so much progress, but we have a long way to go, particularly in forensics. We're not necessarily really keeping up. So with that said, with our diverse problem set and our diverse issues within our community, I look around and I see really an astonishing lack of diversity in our community. There's great strength in diversity. One of the things that I find, and one of the things that we're really working on doing research around, is particularly for unique communities, the strengths that they have. And again, it's back to that problem solving piece, where when you are coming from a group that may be underrepresented, you've had to solve and deal with a lot of problems. And actually those problems give you an incredible amount of strength. And we feel like we can bring that strength into the DFIR community. So that's our great hope. I will say that I am incredibly proud to be part of the DFIR community. It is an incredible group of people. I have worked in a lot of fields. I have worked with a lot of people, and I have never found such an incredible group of people who are willing to dedicate themselves and their work. And I'm hooked. From the first moment I walked in the door, I actually went to the way that I kind of got into this was I went to one of the first DFI digital forensics research events, and I was just immediately hooked by the community and the dedication of the people here. That said, and it is coming along, but when I first started the project, the digital forensics project, I mean, there wasn't much diversity, and personally, I don't like whining about things. I always want to do something about it. And so after some musing and trying to figure out what might be the best thing to do, we started training. I'm grabbing this. I actually am quoting myself. I'm hoping that someday I'll, have one of those cute pictures, with like some brilliant quotes. So this quote actually on the sign is from Confucius, right? So this concept of, long-term planning and long-term strategy, and the group didn't get to hear it, but we were talking a little bit about it, which was, we cannot live in this with this patch mentality and continue to we can't get ahead, certainly. And so all of our efforts, my efforts, are based around education and training, and particularly training the next generation, although I am also very interested in re-educating people who are in the workforce. And really, I think for us as a community in cyber and digital forensics, we really need everyone to become an advocate and an evangelist for cyber. So with that, I want to introduce learning about digital forensic science in a virtual environment. We founded the Cyber Sleuth Science Lab. The project began in 2013, I think, 2014. We started applying for funding, and I'm very happy to say that the National Science Foundation found it possible to fund our project. So all of the work that we've been doing is being supported by the National Science Foundation. Our prime directive really is engaging young women. And in part, this is because I felt like I could speak to this. However, I will say that we're truly interested in
Uh-oh, Daryl, you cut out for a moment.
global. It's one of the first digital forensics trainings that I've seen in high school or at least was when we started. There's a few, I'm really happy to see that there is a growing amount of interest in this area, and more and more resources every time I look, which is amazing. But right now we're focused in middle and high school. So I teach digital forensics, and Becky, you know, I of course am probably making some assumptions that people really truly understand what digital forensics is, as opposed to cybersecurity. But digital forensics really is looking at the digital artifacts that are left behind in any kind of device, any kind of place where data is stored. And so as digital forensic examiners, we're looking at those artifacts, and we're trying to recreate what happened. It's a little bit different than cyber, although it supports cyber, and certainly digital forensics is a huge part of incident response. But typically, we're sort of, I guess, post-mortem, and the way that I see cybersecurity going is much more proactive in terms of learning and training and teaching, and hopefully preventing breaches that digital forensics examiners will then go investigate. So why are we teaching this? So you know, one of the reasons is that, as I said earlier, there is a huge need. There are so many positions, and there's just a tremendous need for this. And that there's basically 0% unemployment in this field. That's also part of our motivation. But quite honestly, we have some deeper objectives, which really are inspiring more people to join our field, to really bring them in, because we have a diverse set of problems, and we are not gonna be able to solve those with a homogeneous approach. It's just not gonna work. Digital forensics is working really well in high school when I first started, and I'm really happy to say that this has changed. When I first started talking to schools about this, they were terrified. They were afraid that I was going to teach their students how to be hackers. They weren't sure that they wanted our work in their school. In many cases, the kids are already more technologically savvy.
Oh, you cut off again, Daryl. If you can, can you hear me? You cut off for a moment. You were just talking about their kids being more technology savvy.
Yes. So they're more technology savvy. The fear is kind of reduced a little bit as what's happened in the last, I think it's really just in the last year or so that the schools are actually seeing, you know, there've been some very public breaches in schools. And so I think they're seeing the need for this. But one of the great things about using digital forensics in particular is that there are all of these other implications, ethics, you know, the need to understand how technology fits throughout our lives, being able to express one's self, to present findings in a nice, neat way, and really that whole process of scientific inquiry that we go through as digital forensic examiners really is helpful for building on both digital street smarts and 21st century skills, which we really need in our education system. So in addition, what we're seeing is that a lot of youth who may self-select out of computer science or STEM are drawn into our field. You know, it's just sort of sexy enough that to bring students in. And, you know, bringing somebody into a career like this really has the potential to change multi-generational property. It's just an amazing thing. And if people don't end up really pursuing this pathway, this knowledge and skills are so valuable to each of us just as users of technology. And it doesn't matter what, you know, what part of the business sector we're working in, you kind of need to have those digital street smarts. So we've created a virtual laboratory. This is where we really have all the training and the materials and the information. We're setting up missions. We've created missions that are realistic. For the first time ever in my career, I have been fabricating evidence. And we're gonna have those, you know, continue to build on those. So right now we're starting with data recovery. We're doing examinations of smartphones. We're analyzing breach. We're doing a breach, you know, an incident response where somebody's fallen victim to a phishing scam and it's gotten their school mail. We're looking at having students recovering and looking at data in mobile apps and social media sites. And to do this, we've got a virtual toolkit. So it's actually hands-on. They're looking at evidence, they're analyzing, and they're using the tools that we use as professionals. And we've had really a wonderful response and support from the forensics community in terms of donating their tools to our project. So Magnet Forensics and XRY and just a number of support from the forensics community. It's great. So some of these fundamental concepts that we have in forensics are really, really important, and they're important across technology. So handling digital evidence, incredibly important for everyone in technology. I can't tell you, in my course and my casework, my consulting practice, I've had, I'd say like 6 out of the last 10 cases I've had this year had issues with the way that the evidence was handled before it came to me. Some of those made it impossible for us to really do proper analysis. Walking through the examination, figuring out how to reach conclusions and write reports. These are things actually that everyone needs to do. Not only do we teach the students this, but I'm constantly working with my examiners on that. And ethics, which is so important, ethics in technology, and really examining technology from that place. And I know Dimitrios is going to get much more into this, but not bringing bias into looking at evidence. I mean, we as digital forensics people, often some of the decisions we make have a real impact on people. This data is often used in a court of law to determine guilt, and it's just incredibly important that people handle evidence well and really find ways to be aware and work around their personal bias. And so we cover a lot of that information in the lab. So far, we have had pilots in New Orleans, Baltimore, and out in Seattle, where you are. And we have this fall, we're working on a pilot with a school district in Nevada that we're really excited about. And the students are fascinated. My favorite part about this project is, first off, I will say that the students, once they have the training and the materials, they take to this, like, ducks to water. They're just doing a great job. That's incredibly important, that we have skilled and technical workers. What's also amazing is that they're starting to think about privacy in a way that I wish more young people would think about. At no point do we say, thou shalt not take pictures of yourself and post them on social media like a mom. I am a mom. But I kind of wait in the hallways as people are coming out of some of our pilots, and they're like checking the security settings on their phone. They're checking the security settings. They're looking. They're like, they're looking at the artifacts in the photos that they're sending. They're really starting to think about the implications of digital evidence. And I think it's a great way to illustrate that. Right now in our field, I feel like we have these two software, which would be a really good idea, and we'd love them to do that, but it doesn't show them why. And so this hands-on training is a really great way to illustrate why it's important and change behavior, because if we aren't able to start changing the behavior, I don't know how we're going to get ahead of this, ahead of the curve. So, don't know where I am on time.
You have like 2 minutes left.
Perfect. Great, because I have 2 slides left. So these are some of our current partners. Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for your support. We are anxiously awaiting the results. We've applied for new funding to broaden our activities, to continue to expand Cyber Sleuth, and also really start to work with industry partners to develop internship opportunities, because even when our students go through go through our program and get into educational settings, which we're encouraging, they still need support to get jobs. So we are really, this is an all call. We're looking for role models, advisory board members, pilot site partners, students, educators. So we're developing relationships with 2- and 4-year universities that are have programs, so that the students who are interested and excited about this can continue along this pathway. Employers, we're really working with some large industries to make sure that we've incorporated the skills in our materials that will make the students more, give them better job opportunities. And we're also always looking for sponsors. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to see, so excited to learn about your organization, and just really encourage the need for more training and outreach and community and support.
I'm super happy to have you here. I'm very impressed with what you've been able to accomplish so far, and it seems very exciting. And I want to know, can I play with it? Is there a website where I can go and try out some of the forensics?
So Cyber Sleuth Lab is right now, we have logins, and we're still, we're just kind of finishing our pilot. As I mentioned earlier, we have received funding from NSF. So I actually probably should have started with my caveat, is that any opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations are, are ours and not of NSF. But we're hoping like this current round will be done in March, and we're really hoping to expand and reach out. So by all means, reach out to me, and I'm able to, we have trainings and we have programs going on. We're also looking for people who are interested in partnering with us to do more and to grow more. We're working on something called the Cyber Science Collaborative, and we're calling it cyber science because we feel like it encompasses AI, it encompasses digital forensics, it encompasses cybersecurity. There's so many, there's this convergence, and there's a lot of resources, and they have such a great need. We do not want to be in competition. We want to collaborate with you and with all the other like-minded people out there, because there's just a tremendous need. So
great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we're going to turn it over to Dr. Damopooulos, and he's going to talk about ethics and forensics and artificial intelligence. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon. First of all, I would like to say a small comment. I couldn't agree more with Daryl. Whatever she presented in the past 20 minutes, I would agree that inclusion, collaboration is the way in the future of cybersecurity. And I'm really happy that I see so many people that are coming together and they are building this path. And I hope to the future of the cybersecurity will be a little bit easier as we are just now building the next steps. To this end, let me share my slides and so today I will try to combine different areas of cybersecurity, which is ethics, trustworthiness, cyber forensics, AI, and all this work is work that I'm currently doing under fund by the Department of Defense. So this doesn't really represent the Department of Defense. It's work that has been done by me and my team. And I would like to share a little bit more about myself. I got my first computer when I was 13 years old, and 2 years later, I started identifying that, you can modify the programs, you can write some programs that can modify other programs. And over the time, I started exploring the different aspects of cybersecurity. Of course, I traveled a lot the past couple of years. And when I was 22 years old, I was exposed to machine learning, and I was able since then to combine cybersecurity with machine learning, and I was able to build different systems, either to protect systems or explore how someone can attack a system. What I realized is that cybersecurity education needs to start very early in life. I was 15 years old when I primarily got exposed in cybersecurity, but nowadays kids have a device, a smartphone or a laptop, not when they are 13 years old, but when they are 3 or 4 years old. With all this exposure, cybersecurity education is also important. So the last 15 years, I focus on intrusion detection, authentication, forensics, and I apply these domains and this knowledge in smartphones, IoT devices, and cyber-physical systems. I utilize usually machine learning, deep learning, or AI in order to build this smart entity and help me to make decisions if something is malicious or not. The past couple of years, as a professor, I realized that what I was doing for many years was I was ignoring a very important part. I was ignoring what's trustworthiness of the systems that I'm building, what's ethics, and I very fast realized that what is ethical or what is considered ethical maybe in the United States, or what is legal or what is considered private in the United States, it's not the same for Europe or for Asia. So I very quickly realized that we are missing the standards for the cybersecurity. So we are all trying to build systems to protect ourselves, but the systems, they are operating in the cyberspace. They're not really operating on the real life. And things are getting more complex as we start to become part of the interconnected world. So we have smartphones, we have smart cars, and now we are start building a smart industry where everything is interconnected. We realized very fast, especially this year, that we had to move many of our operations online. So we had to work remotely due to the COVID. So we moved to a cyber physical area where we have users. We are utilizing different devices, smartphone, tablets, smart homes we have nowadays, we have smart cars. And all these devices are interconnected with the internet and allow us to utilize services on the cloud. Currently, in order to communicate, we are utilizing a platform. Our data are shared with a cloud service, and this way we are able to communicate. But modern services are utilizing AI. So they rely on data in order to make decisions and support us in this cyber-physical area. What we have seen the past couple of months is that they have been developed applications that are able to identify COVID exposure. This means that someone can walk around on the street or be in a building, and if another user is identified with COVID, will alert us or give us an indication that maybe we are also exposed. This is a very important example of the cyber-physical world. So we see that the cyber world also interacts directly with the physical system. And the goal of my presentation today is to raise awareness about the ethical implications, both when we are utilizing services, but also when we are building the services. Keep in mind, we are building services that rely on AI, rely on data. And if we have bias in the data, this will affect also how these AI systems behave. And because AI will make many decisions in our lives, will be difficult for the cybersecurity domain and for the digital forensic domain to justify who made the error, who made the crime. Before I continue, I would like to share some definitions so we all are aware of what I'm talking about. So cybersecurity refers to the technologies and processes designed to protect systems, networks, and data. Digital forensics is the application of scientific investigation techniques to digital crimes and attacks. Ethics is a branch of knowledge that deals with moral principles. Moral principles that govern a person's behavior or a conduction or an activity. This means that ethics is not really related with what is legal. Okay, maybe we have a law that specifies exactly how we should behave. In many cases, the law are very abstract. So then we have to rely on our own ethics or the ethics of our company or the ethics of an organization to make some moral decisions. And this comes either to justify how we're gonna treat some evidence or how we're gonna build a system, what type of data we're gonna utilize. And then I will refer to machine learning. Machine learning is a branch of artificial intelligence based on the idea that a system can learn from data, will be able to identify patterns, and will make decisions with minimal human intervention. So to this end, I will just expose you to the problem that comes with machine learning and bias, and why it's important to build the ethical perspective in all cybersecurity researchers or people that they're interacting or building systems based for cybersecurity.
Let's play a game. Close your eyes and picture a shoe. Okay, did anyone picture this? This? How about this? We may not even know why, but each of us is biased toward one shoe over the others. Now imagine that you're trying to teach a computer to recognize a shoe. You may end up exposing it to your own bias. That's how bias happens in machine learning. But first, what is machine learning? Well, it's used in a lot of technology we use today. Machine learning helps us get from place to place, gives us suggestions, translates stuff, even understands what you say to it. How does it work? With traditional programming, people hand code the solution to a problem, step by step. With machine learning, computers learn the solution by finding patterns in data. So it's easy to think there's no human bias in that. But just because something is based on data doesn't automatically make it neutral. Even with good intentions, it's impossible to separate ourselves from our own human biases. So our human biases become part of the technology we create in many different ways.
So the past 10 years, I was building systems that rely on machine learning. And in my case, I utilize the bias in order to identify anomalies in the system. So anything that goes against the normal behavior of how we are utilizing a system, that might be an indication that an attack occurred or a malicious action is part of our system, is exposed to our system. Saying so, for many years, I thought that this is a great way to build security systems. And then a couple of years ago, after having some discussions, I realized that beyond building the systems that rely on machine learning, and I was using the bias that everyone is creating on how we are utilizing the system, many of these the systems, they are built with data from a specific population, and it's used towards a different communities, and that can affect the trustworthiness of the system. So I realized very fast the past couple of years that trustworthiness of a cyber-physical system is what we have to invest in the future. And what does it include? So a trustworthy system is a system that benefits humanity, and we can trust the system. The system needs to be security safe, hardware safe. The network that we are using should be secure. If we are utilizing cloud, the cloud environment needs to be secure. Smartphone and IoT system needs to be secure. We need to have tools and methods on how we are approaching different digital attacks. So we need to have a toolkit and people that they are trained to identify what was the issue and how an attack was happened. But beyond that, as we are utilizing machine learning and AI to build security systems, we have to focus also on the AI trustworthiness. How trustworthy is the system that we are building, the model that we are building? Do we have standards and frameworks across the different states, across the country, or across the world? how these new systems are compatible with legacy systems. Do we take care about the privacy concerns and how this can affect future generations? Who is managing all the systems? And finally, do we provide education to all different levels, either we at school, to the teachers, at the college level, at the companies, at the different parts of society? And does education reach all the population in this country or in the world? Because right now we are not just talking about systems that are utilized locally. How your system will behave when you travel overseas. Do you have the same privileges in terms of privacy, in terms of standards that the system follows? How your data are exposed, or how your personal identity is exposed? And do all the people have enough education to adjust in this environment that changes so fast? So trustworthiness, I believe that it will be really challenging over the years. Personally, when I was building systems, I was focused mostly on the accuracy and the performance. How good is the system? Now, I focus to all these other domains: privacy, ethics. Who owns this data? Who owns the models that we are creating? Who owns the metadata? How we can validate the models that we are building are fair? Can we prevent attacks against the systems? Is the AI or the models that we are designing explainable? And saying this, do we have tools to identify and work on topics that they are related with attacks, that they are controlled by an AI system? So far, most of the systems are initiated by a hacker. Now, what I see the trend is happening is that hackers are building an AI system, and so much faster, and makes their own decisions. So it will be really difficult in the future to define who really control the attack. And I will give you some examples about bias and the trustworthiness of a system. So here we see Google Translator, and we try to translate using AI the text, she's a professor, he's a babysitter. And we translate this to the Turkish language. If we try to do the opposite, and we just copy paste the Turkish text, and we try to convert it to the English text, we see that the text translates, he's a professor, she's a babysitter. So this is an example of how AI really fails us, because it contains some bias, the assumption that, you know, a professor can be a male while a babysitter can be a female. And this is a really small example to identify the big issue of bias in all the systems that we are utilizing on an everyday basis. Another example is when we are visiting a website with hotels, and we see that the average for this hotel is 3.2, but for Hotel B, the average is 3.2 as well. Which of the two hotels are the best? We don't really know, because maybe this data, the data that we are trusting to make the decisions for our lives, maybe for the Hotel A, the 3.2 was a mix of 3 and 4 evaluations, while for Hotel B, the 3.2 was a mix of mostly 1 and 5. So this gives us a perspective that the system that we are utilizing in our everyday life, they are not really trustworthy. So some food from thought. Humans have many biases, and it's hard to detect. And as developers or as companies are building all these services, we don't really pay attention on how individual developers or as companies, we are including and we are bringing the bias that we have into the services that we provide. So many times that the services that we are creating are not fair. And in many cases that can harm people. When we are building a model for health, when we are utilizing data from a specific population, when we don't, when the models are not inclusive, the data are not inclusive, when we don't have diversity of the data, this can harm people. We can build some models for creating a new, for testing or creating a new medicine based on specific data, but then this data maybe come from a population, let's say from the population from Greece. And when you try to apply these models for someone that is, say, in Africa or in China, maybe this model can cause harm. What is really important is to start education very early. And beyond focusing just on cybersecurity, we have to focus also on the ethical part. Every time we are designing a system, we should take into consideration the biases that we are including. What's ethical and what's not ethical is a huge issue. And the issue comes on how we are really teaching ethics. So the grant that I have focus on cybersecurity ethics in education. So we are an interdisciplinary research team. The co-PI is Dr. Susanne Wetzel. And in this team, we are working with a PhD student from the Instructional Design and Development, Stephanie Gray. So we are working under the Ethics in Cybersecurity grant from the Department of Defense, and also under the umbrella of the Information Security Research and Education, which is called also the INSURE Consortium. And what we try to do is we try to understand how we are teaching ethics at the university level. So if we utilize an open data set where there is a list of courses with that they have focus on ethics, we will see that there are only 19 courses that they have focus. There are courses related to ethics, but they have focus on cybersecurity. Many of the courses that we are teaching in the cybersecurity world or in computer science, they don't focus just on cybersecurity. They focus on laws and policies. Some of them now we see that they focus on AI and algorithms. Some of them, they focus on the philosophy of ethics. So there are many courses that they offer currently in the United States, but they only really few have focus on cybersecurity ethics. Just to give you a different perspective, many of the ethics courses in CS cover topics in the majority on privacy and law. And then they talk for cybersecurity, and few of them, they talk on ethics. And I'm referring only to the 19 courses out of the whole list. Another perspective is how we are teaching ethics, how we are really building these courses. Mostly, we have just discussion about ethics. Some of the courses, they include presentations and read of papers, and they have to do a theoretical project. And we see only 15%, they have something that is hands-on. This meaning that students that they are learning how to write code, students that they learn how to build systems, they don't do applied work when it comes to the ethical part. So they just discuss. And we identify that this is really critical. So this summer, we invite 16 participants from academia, K-12 education, different agencies like NSF, CIA, FBI, NSA, and different corporations. And we discuss ethics in cybersecurity. It was a very interesting workshop, and the results are pending to be published. During this workshop, individually the participants share their own perspective, and then we grouped them and they had to do some work. Finally, they suggest some future direction for education, ethics, and cybersecurity. And I will highlight the outcomes here. So it's very important to build materials that can be used in education. It's really important to have syllabi and also provide open source toolkits. Across the country, they are not the same educational standards. And it's important to have, especially for cybersecurity and ethics, some baseline standards on how we are teaching this to our schools. Especially, we need to have national training for K-12 teachers that they are able to discuss topics related to cybersecurity, especially in the world nowadays that everything is happening remotely. When it comes to ethics in colleges, it's important that ethics needs to be taught across many courses and needs to combine the theoretical and the practical aspect. So we have to bridge the theory and the practice. Concluding, investing in cybersecurity is very important, especially if we would like to have an ecosystem that we trust and it's inclusive across different cultures, different countries, because we are operating in the cyberspace that doesn't have technically any physical barriers. It's important to introduce guidelines and best practices. Another direction is to develop processes and tools that we can use in the cyber-physical world, especially for digital forensics. The technology goes so fast, we can have an iPhone or an Android phone that is currently available, and still we don't have access and we cannot fully extract the data. And this phone can be utilized in an attack. So developing processes and tools is really important. As we are entering the cyber-physical world, we need to understand better, and we should be able to evaluate the trustworthiness of a system, either when focused on just the cybersecurity or if it includes AI. And I will agree with Daryl, building a strong digital forensic community, it's very important. Every day is getting more complicated to understand the systems, and unless we educate on a daily basis ourselves, but also our peers, we will not be able to understand what is happening when AI will be part of every system. At this point, I would like to thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for presenting. I think it gives a really unique insight into the industry to look at this sort of issue and to look at it early so that we can help develop systems to find these biases and prevent them in the future. I think that's all of our time, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you again so much for participating.